So, Ahsoka episode 1 and 2 came out the other day. And I wanted to make a follow up video to my video I made the other day, talking about some of my concerns that I had with the series and let you guys know what I think about these first two episodes. Of course, major spoiler warning ahead. If you haven't seen the show, go watch it and then come back. We're going to be getting into a lot of details, a lot of spoilers, some parallels. Not necessarily an Easter egg breakdown video or anything like that, but just kind of some of my thoughts, some stuff I thought was really cool, as well as, kind of some more concerns that I might have going forward for the casual viewer. So anyways, let's get right into it. First off, first thing I love, show opens up with an opening crawl. We have never seen that in a show before. It's only been, kind of sticks to the movies that get opening crawls. So I thought that was really cool. I was like, all right, this is kind of set apart from what we've had in the past. I love the opening parallel to The Phantom Menace with Shin and Baylan, kind of compared to Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan in the opening of that. I thought that was really, really great. Kind of setting them up as like, oh, they're claiming to be Jedi. And you kind of see the egotistical New Republic being like, okay, yeah, you just, here's some Imperial trash, show us your identification. And Baylan's like, oh, I'll show you my identification. And they immediately just start tearing apart these New Republic guards. Thought it was great seeing that. I also love that Shan has a Padawan braid. I think that's a really, really cool feature. I kind of want to touch on Baylan for a second. And of course, I want to start by saying, rest in peace, Ray Stevenson. He died earlier this year. Extremely sad to hear that. He so far is incredible in this show. He's been great in some other things as well. His character is really, really interesting to me. I think I'm most interested in him because he doesn't seem like just a stark, like Sith dark side user. He seems very honorable, and I love the detail that Shin having a Padawan braid, because it kind of shows that even though he's not necessarily a Jedi anymore, he still is looking at Shin as his, I guess, dark side Padawan in a sense. So thought that detail was really cool. I don't think we've seen that before. His theme when he's just running through the New Republic guards is this very stark piano theme. That I loved. I'm a big movie score guy, and so hearing something different than our normal orchestral Star Wars theme that I also love. But I just thought it was really cool and really unique. So they go through, they of course free Morgan Elsbeth, and we then cut to Ahsoka on a planet where she's basically breaking into a Night Sister temple. We get to see her classic Clone Wars move where she, shoots her lightsabers into the ground and forms a circle and drops down. Really, really cool reference there. It reminded me a lot of Zepho from the Jedi Fallen Order game. If you haven't played that, it really reminded me of that planet where you kind of have to go through and you have to, move a lot of these little ancient artifacts to kind of figure out what you need to get. And so very quickly we're introduced to Ahsoka. I thought her combat was great. I do have some thoughts on Rosario Dawson's portrayal of Ahsoka, which I'll get into a bit later. Not necessarily bad, just some thoughts. We see her immediately, take out some HK droids showing her combat skills. We see David Tennant as Hu Yang, Hu Yang was a character that was introduced in the Clone Wars as well. He basically is a droid that helps younglings build their first lightsabers.
You expect us to learn from a droid?
Who said that? Many years I have been on this ship, teaching many a Jedi before you, and I will continue teaching many a Jedi after you. Call me what you want, but inside my memory banks, I contain a record of every lightsaber ever made, and the Jedi who fashioned them. Which will you choose?
And David Tennant is just perfect in this role. I love David Tennant. I'm a big Doctor Who fan. Seeing him in basically anything just makes me very happy. We then cut to Lothal, and they recreated Lothal so well, in my opinion. We see Ryder Azadi show up. That was a really cool little surprise. We see the mural from the Rebels TV show. It's painted in the art style of the Rebels show. I thought that was a cool little detail. We of course see Sabine. She's not really wanting to go to this ceremony thing. She's doing her own thing. She seems to have taken over Ezra's tower. I love her casting so far. I think she's the same kind of rebellious Mandalorian she was in the show so far, kind of very stubborn, very, very bullish, as Ahsoka later claims. But it does appear that she's kind of set aside her Mandalorian and warrior ways. She's grown her hair out. She's doesn't have her armor on. She's just in regular clothes. And we see her kind of mourning Ezra's, disappearance still. She still has a hologram message from him. And so I'm very curious to see what her character arc is. It is confirmed in this show that she was Ahsoka's Padawan. Curious to see what they're going to do with that. like I touched on in my last video, I don't necessarily care or need her to be a Force user. Like, not everyone needs to be a Force user. We see her meeting up with Ahsoka, where she tells her, like, they have a map to find Ezra, which was kind of the main plot of the show. We saw a lot of that in the trailers. And of course, so Sabine wants to take the map onto to her little tower to work, and Ahsoka's like, no. And then the second Ahsoka turns her back, I'm sitting there, I'm like, she's going to take the map. Of course she does. In classic Sabine fashion, she doesn't really listen, I guess. She doesn't really follow rules. So, loving all that so far. Another cool detail I liked, that this isn't a Star Wars Easter egg at all, but the map when it opens up reminds me of, if you guys remember the old Disney movie Treasure Planet, the map kind of opens up in a very similar way. I don't know if that was intentional at all. That was just something that I picked up when I first watched it. That was one of my favorite movies as a kid, and so I really like that. That's kind of a cool little Easter egg and detail. Like I said, no idea if that was intentional or not, but something I noticed. We do see some guilt on Ahsoka's face and it kind of in her voice when she's talking to Hera.
I bet your master found you difficult at times.
Anakin never got to finish my training. I walked away from him, just like I walked away from Sabine.
About, Hera makes a comment to Ahsoka of, oh, I'm sure your master had struggles with you. And she talks about, Anakin never got to finish my training. I left before the Clone Wars ended. And I like this scene a lot. It does show that she is still, even after all these years, harboring a lot of guilt for leaving Anakin. I'm sure she probably thinks in her mind that, oh, if she would have stuck around, maybe Anakin wouldn't have turned, and maybe he wouldn't have, but we all know that he probably still would have. And so not only is there guilt from like losing her friend and master, but also what that led to for, kind of to the detriment of the entire galaxy. That's a lot of responsibility and guilt that I'm sure she's putting on herself.
I was beginning to believe I knew who you were behind that mask, but it's impossible. My master could never be as vile as you.
Anakin Skywalker was weak. I destroyed him.
Then I will avenge his death.
Revenge is not the Jedi way.
I am no Jedi.
Which is probably adding to her kind of more stoic, stubborn ways in the show, which I'll touch on here soon. But another parallel to Phantom Menace that I noticed too is we have Shin when she arrives on Lothal. It's very, very similar to Darth Maul on Tatooine. And I love that. Like, she's got her probe droid kind of looking around. It reminded me a lot. That was obviously intentional. It reminded me a lot of Darth Maul on Tatooine in episode 1. Another detail I really liked, we see, so of course Sabine ends up facing off against Shin. They have a cool little lightsaber fight. I thought it was fun. I thought it was cool. I wasn't really paying too much to the choreography. It was entertaining. It was cool. I like that Sabine lost. I was really worried when that fight started. I was like, please don't make Sabine just win. She's not a Force user. She's had very little training with a lightsaber, whereas Shin presumably has been training with Balon since she's a kid. I heard some theories that Shin maybe is Balon's daughter. So I think that'd be cool and kind of interesting. I think that would add to his character. But of course, she gets stabbed through the stomach, adding to the ever-ending list of characters in the Star Wars universe who have survived blows to the stomach with a lightsaber. Leaving poor Qui-Gon wondering why he seems to be the only one who didn't end that. And so, yeah, that wraps up the first episode. Overall, I liked it. I thought it was fun. I thought it was really, really great. The end credit scene is also super cool. It's very Game of Thrones-esque. If you didn't watch the end credit scene, I definitely would recommend it, just for fun. And so I do want to kind of talk about, before getting into episode 2, I wanted to talk about some stuff with this episode, or the way this show's going that I'm a bit concerned about. So first off, I mentioned this in my first video, kind of an assumption and a guess that this was probably going to end up being Rebels Season 5. And after these first 2 episodes, it is absolutely Rebels Season 5. Not only do we have, pretty much the whole cast but the whole characters, all the characters from Rebels returning. They're basically continuing the plot point from Rebels, where they go to find Ezra, which, that's at the end of episode 2. I'm kind of hopping around a bit here, but the last end of episode 2, which I liked, is basically the same end shot of Rebels, almost like frame for frame. It's a pretty much a perfect remake. And for me, I'm someone who watched Rebels. I didn't watch it till a couple years ago. I watched it in like 2019. I finally kind of went through it. I didn't watch it as it was airing, because it was a kid's show, like, and I was a kid with Clone Wars, but when that show came out, I wasn't a kid, so I didn't watch it. I do like it. I think it's cool. I think it's a great show. It's got some really great high points. I like that they're continuing it. But the difference between something in animation versus live action is animation tends to be, kids will watch it more often. Then you have some hardcore Star Wars fans who want to see everything, who will go and still watch the animated stuff to get more of the lore and whatnot. So you have I'm sure there's a lot of casual audience viewers watching the show who've seen The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, some of the other live action stuff, who are kind of following that universe, who didn't even know who Ahsoka was until they got introduced to her in The Mandalorian season 2 and wanted to watch a show, and now are probably wondering, like, who's all these other characters? There's a lot of stuff missing, even in the show. We have a huge time gap where we have a lot of stuff missing between. There was obviously something that happened between Ahsoka and Sabine that we don't even know about yet. It just feels like a lot of stuff to have to fill in for a live action show that I'm worried they'll have to spend a lot of time filling in details for not only the casual fan, but also for the people who have seen Rebels who want to know what happened between Ahsoka and Sabine. I'm very curious to see how they're going to handle that. Let me know what you guys think. That's something that I kind of immediately picked up on, that this is definitely Rebels season 5, where I've even had friends texting me. They're like, oh, what do you think of the show? Like, should I watch Rebels first? And I'm like, yeah, maybe put off a couple weeks of this show and just go through Rebels, because I said in my last episode, I think it'll be, give you a better viewing experience for this show. But I think in this, it might be necessary. We'll see where the story goes after, we'll see where the story goes to see if they can kind of tie it all together in a nice way. So anyways, let's get into episode 2 a bit now. So we see Ahsoka. Sabine wakes up in the hospital bed. She's being, treated for her wounds. And Ahsoka's very stern. She's very stern with Sabine. She lost the map after she unlocked it. Basically it fell into enemy hands. And there's a lot of tension between these two characters, and I'm not sure how I'm really feeling about this portrayal of Ahsoka so far. Not in a sense that I'm dismissing it. It's just different. The last time we saw Ahsoka was in Rebels, but she was still voiced by Ashley Eckstein, which still felt like Ahsoka. Despite being a bit older and more wise, she still had that charisma and charm to her that we saw in the Clone Wars, despite being a bit older. Whereas now this version of Ahsoka, a post-Imperial Ahsoka in the New Republic, is very, very stoic. And I'm really trying to keep an open mind to it. I am, because, you have to understand, she's 45 years old at this point. She's lived through the Clone Wars. She was raised basically from her youth in war. That's all she's known. Lived through the fall of the Jedi Order, the rise of the Empire, the Galactic Civil War, fall of the Empire, and now the rise of the New Republic. So, of course, with there being rumblings of Thrawn, the last thing she would ever possibly want is for there to be another war to break out, especially because she does have that guilt of probably partially feeling responsible for Anakin falling to the dark side and the galaxy going to the state that it's in. So that's some other kind of thoughts and concerns I had with the way this character is being portrayed so far. Want to preface absolutely nothing against Rosario Dawson. She's an incredible actress. I think she's just doing a different take on this character. And so it's weird for me, and I'm sure a lot of you guys as well, who grew up with this character and saw her through Clone Wars and Rebels in one way, and now we're getting her represented in a very different way. I hope they give Ashley Eckstein something, even if it's a little cameo, because Ashley Eckstein, for me, and probably for a lot of you, is and always will be Ahsoka. She absolutely killed it with that character. So I hope they at least give her a little nod or a reference at the very least. So now I do want to get into some more cool details that I like. Ahsoka seems to have the Force Echo ability, similar to Cal Kestis from Jedi Fallen Order and Survivor. We see her outside of Sabine's tower, kind of waving her hand around, listening to Force echoes, where she can kind of hear what happened in the battle of the night before, looking for clues. So that was cool. That's the first time, I believe the first time we've seen an ability like that in live action that was pulled straight from the game, which again, kind of like I said earlier, they're pulling some stuff from the game. Like I said, the first episode, that little opening spot reminded me a lot of Zepho. They're pulling in the Force Echo. Are they kind of trying to hint towards maybe a live action Cal Kestis? I know that's something I really want. I would love to see that. Oh, and I forgot to mention, we do get Morgan Elsbeth as a confirmed Night Sister. One of the other only confirmed Night Sisters in the galaxy is, of course, Night Sister Merrin from those games. So, I don't know. They could be opening the doors for that. I hope they do it, I hope they do it justice and do it right. That would be something that would be really cool. Even later in the episode, I'm gonna kind of skip around a little bit. When Morgan Elsbeth is talking to Balon, they open up the map and they're talking about this different galaxy. And I guess spoilers for Jedi Survivor a bit, but in the back of my mind when they were talking about where they're going to be going, I was like, is this going to be Tanalorr? Which that's kind of the premise of the Survivor game, is it's this planet in the unknown regions that's completely free of any Imperial anything. It's unclaimed territory basically, called Tanalorr, and the goal is to get there and stay there. So it ends up being this other place. It's called the Pathway to Peridia, which that's cool. I'm sure it'll be fun. I just, like I said, for a second there I'm watching, I'm like, is this gonna be Tanalorr? That'd be cool. Not something I feel like I need from this show, but it is interesting that they are kind of bringing in elements from the game into these live action shows. Also, I did notice on a second watch that if you look around the little galaxy thing that she's using, it kind of looks like the World Between Worlds portals. And on this one, it actually has the Purgil, which of course, again, if you didn't watch Rebels, I will say spoilers for Rebels. That's how Thrawn and Ezra get transported to the other end of the galaxy, is through the Purgil. Ezra basically uses his Force abilities. He can kind of connect with animals to talk to the Purgils. They wrap around the starship that they're in and then just disappear. So that was really cool. That was a fun little missable detail that I saw. We see Hera and Ahsoka go to Corellia. I do want to touch on Hera. So far, I'm really liking her. I think she's really great. She's kind of bridging the gap between Sabine and Ahsoka, kind of trying to use her classic mom energy that she's got to get them back to working together. She's kind of playing both sides, talking to them both on their own, which I really like. It feels very in character to her. Let me know what you guys think of Hera so far. I really like her. I really like her so far. I hope we see a lot more of her. They go to Corellia to investigate Morgan Elsbeth's fleet. And of course, we see kind of a continuation from what we saw in The Mandalorian, where the New Republic is hiring ex-Imperials to work for them. Very similar. It's basically, they're kind of doing the thing, Operation Paperclip, which is where the U.S. hired Nazi scientists after the war. And then they also did that in The Winter Soldier, where S.H.I.E.L.D. hired Hydra agents, ex-Hydra operatives to work for S.H.I.E.L.D. And of course, in that show, if you've seen The Winter Soldier, that went to shit. And of course, in this show, it goes to shit. Once they start questioning them about, why is this gigantic hyperdrive going? Someone shouts, "For the Empire," and, a little fight breaks out. And of course, you're watching that whole scene and you're like, yeah, of course, kind of going to show that the New Republic bureaucracy is just not gonna work. We obviously know that canonically. We know this, what happens in the sequels. So I'm sure Dave Filoni and the team are trying to do some stuff to lay the groundwork for that as well, which, I don't hate that idea. Anything that, can kind of help build up the canon and explain some stuff a bit more to strengthen other parts of Star Wars, no matter your feelings on it, I think that's always a good thing, because it's there and we want it to be able to make as most sense. And what the Clone Wars did for a lot of prequel haters is it actually helped out the prequels a lot and filled in a lot of gaps. So if this show and kind of these shows want to do that for the sequels, I have nothing wrong with that. So anyways, we see Ahsoka. She goes to fight Merrick, who's either an ex-Inquisitor or the last Inquisitor. I did see a thing that I think this would be really cool. Someone posted on Twitter that Sam Witwer's voice credited as additional voices in the credits. If you don't know who Sam Witwer is, he's an incredible voice actor. He, he's played multiple roles in the Clone Wars. Most notably, he plays Darth Maul.
Let me go. Let me die! You're all going to burn! We're all going to die! You don't know what you're doing!
But also he was Starkiller in the Star Wars The Force Unleashed games.
You agreed to stay away!
I lied.
So he's a fan favorite character. I don't think that's going to be Starkiller. I believe there were rumors and talks of having Starkiller be an Inquisitor, but I think it was scrapped. But it would be cool to see him in live action. I think he's more than deserving of a live action appearance with everything he's done for the Star Wars fandom. I think he's great. But their fight scene is great. She fights off him and a HK droid, they're kind of light work for her at this point. I really like the combat in this between those two. I thought it was really fun. And I do want to say too, I loved at the end of her fight with Merrick after he gets back on his ship and everything. He had thrown her lightsaber at her. She dodges it. And then as it's on its way back, she's staring down him and Shin. And of course, she does this little just side dodge and just doesn't even miss a beat. Just dodges the lightsaber, doesn't even have to look at it. It reminded me a lot of kind of the last arc of the Clone Wars where we see Anakin Skywalker. He goes to help Obi-Wan on that bridge, and he's just so calm and collected, and a blaster bolt flies by him, and he just dodges it without even thinking. So I love that little parallel too, kind of showing the evolution between from apprentice to master. So really, really cool little detail that I really, really like that they threw in there. We see another thing that I really loved. Chopper is his normal chaotic self. That is great. They're not really holding back with that at all. And I did notice too, if you listen to him, go back and watch the episode, but if you look kind of his dialect, the way he phrases his little droid voice, I guess, you can kind of tell what he's saying. And so there's a moment where Chopper just goes, "Oh, shoot the ship down," and Hera's like, "No, I can't. It'll destroy the city." And he goes like something like, that would be a bad thing, So they have their little back and forth. It's great. I love that. I love that Chopper's the same chaotic little droid that he is in Rebels.
Can't just shoot it down. It would crash into the port city. Just ready a tracking device, and don't miss this time. No, I did not go through your stuff. Did you look under the backup battery?
And so they get the tracker on there. They're able to track it. The episode kind of wraps up after that. Of course, Hera asks Ahsoka to take on Sabine as her Padawan again. They have a little moment where Ahsoka says, "Oh, Sabine's not ready." And Hera kind of again challenges Ahsoka's thought process and goes, "Okay, well, when do you know when someone's ready?" And of course, in my mind immediately went to the Into the Spider-Verse movie. I'm like, it's just a leap of faith.
When will I know I'm ready?
You won't. It's a leap of faith.
But of course, Ahsoka just says, "You just do." And we then cut to Sabine. Another really cool parallel with Rebels. She sits down to cut her hair. She gets out her Mandalorian armor. She sits down in a very traditional kind of a way. She pulls out a knife, cuts her hair, very similar to the way Kanan does it in Rebels. He sits down with his mask that he has since he's been blinded. He meditates and he cuts off his hair. We see that pretty much recreated with Sabine as well. I really love that because they had a great relationship in the show. So that was a really cool moment. We see her back in her Mandalorian armor. I think the design of the armor looks great. I think her overall design is awesome. And then we of course get, I touched on it earlier, the final shot from Rebels is recreated in live action. Really cool. Again, that's a reference that you don't necessarily have to watch Rebels to get, but if you had, it definitely will just feel that much cooler because it's like, oh, this is the last thing we saw in Rebels. Now this is where that scene is picking up from. So really cool little moment. I loved that a lot. Then we end the episode with Balon, Shin, and Morgan Elsbeth on the ship called the Eye of Sion. They're all talking. The holograms that are used on the Eye of Sion too look a little bit different. I liked it. I thought it was cool. We've never seen a different looking hologram in Star Wars before, so kind of a fun little change. And another thing I love about Balon is he almost expresses remorse at the thought of having to kill Ahsoka, talking about how there's so few Jedi left. And I love that. I have to say, I think his character so far, for me, I am the most interested in. What are his motives? Why is he helping get Thrawn back from, wherever they might be, from the path to Peridia? Is he wanting to seek power? Is he wanting to take over? Is he wanting the Empire back? I have a feeling he's just kind of in it to protect his Padawan, which again, theorized might be his daughter. But overall, I like that character. Like I said, overall, I'm personally happy with these episodes. I'm very curious as to what the arc with Ahsoka is going to be. It kind of seems like Sabine is more the main character in this show. She's the one kind of being set up to go on her journey to become either a Jedi or whatever she needs to be, and Ahsoka's kind of the mentor role in this show. So I'm curious to see what the character arcs are going to be. It's just the first two episodes, they were very much set up episodes. They were setting up the plot, setting up what's going to happen and everything. So my two biggest concerns are for the casual viewer who's never seen Rebels or Clone Wars, but mainly Rebels, and how they're going to feel about this show, if they're going to feel too lost and confused, or if they're going to be able to tie it together in a way that'll make sense for both the casual fans and the hardcore fans who love all the lore and all the references, as well as, like I said, Rosario Dawson's portrayal of Ahsoka feels very stoic and maybe a little bit too stoic. So anyways, let me know what you guys think so far for these two episodes. Sorry, this was a bit of a longer episode, obviously, because we had a two-part series. Next week will be shorter with just, episode 3. But yeah, let me know what you guys thought so far. Let me know any of your crazy fun fan theories. I heard someone mention, Marok might be Ezra. I don't think that'll happen, but man, that would be a crazy twist if we see Marok as Ezra. Anyways, I hope you guys liked the episodes. Let me know your thoughts, your likes, your dislikes, your hopes, whatever it is. And I'll be back next week with another breakdown. All right, have a great day, guys.